My name is Christian Rodriguez, and this is the Political Compass, where we will recap important headlines coming out of Washington, D.C., Tallahassee, and the global stage in order to spread civic literacy amongst Belen students. Let's begin the news with the continuing controversy over the health of U.S. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. As you may know, last week, Leader McConnell suffered a moment during a press conference where he froze mid-sentence. This was the second time this type of episode occurred in just 6 weeks, causing questions to swirl over his ability to continue as Republican Party leader in the Senate. After the incident, McConnell was quick to privately communicate with other members of the Republican conference in the Senate. This included his deputy, Senate Minority Whip John Thune, who told reporters that, quote, he has my full support and the support of the conference. Earlier this week, the Senate gavelled back into session after a summer recess that lasted over a month. This put McConnell on the spot, having to deal with political and personal crises at the same time. He quickly organized a private lunch meeting with all 49 Republican senators for Wednesday, and in that meeting attempted to reassure his colleagues. One of those senators, Florida Senator Rick Scott, a former McConnell adversary, stated that McConnell did a, quote, good job to reassure the conference. Leader McConnell also held a press conference where he responded to questions about his capacity to lead by saying,
what Dr. Monahan's report addressed was concerns people might have that some things that happened to me did happen. Well, they didn't. And I have nothing to add to that. I think he pretty well covered the subject. I'm going to finish my term as leader, and I'm going to finish my Senate term.
On Tuesday, the former leader of the far-right militia organization known as the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, was sentenced to jail time for his role in organizing the riot on the U.S. Capitol on January 6 of 2021. In May, a jury convicted Tarrio of seditious conspiracy, and prosecutors urged Judge Kelly of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia to impose a sentence of 33 years. Instead, Judge Kelly sentenced Tarrio to 22 years behind bars, the lengthiest sentence handed down to any defendant in relation to the attack on the Capitol. Also, this week, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris arrived in Jakarta, Indonesia, for the annual ASEAN Summit. ASEAN is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, representing important geopolitical partners for the United States in Asia, like Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines. The Vice President addressed the human rights abuses in Myanmar, stating that, quote, the U.S. will continue to press Myanmar to foster democracy, and she announced the establishment of a new U.S. ASEAN Center in Washington, D.C. This was the Vice President's third trip to Southeast Asia in her role, an important way for her to enhance her foreign policy credentials in advance of a grueling campaign for re-election. This trip became controversial because initially President Biden was scheduled to attend, but instead decided to send his deputy in his place. This comes just days before the president is set to embark on an international trip to New Delhi, India, for the G20 summit, and afterwards will also visit Vietnam, a key U.S. partner in Southeast Asia. The president's participation in this trip is still up in the air due to the First Lady's positive COVID-19 test on Monday. The First Lady is quarantining at home at the couple's family beach home in Delaware. This week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken took a surprise trip to the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv in order to reinforce U.S. support for Ukraine in its fight against the Russian invasion. Secretary Blinken met with the country's foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba, and the president of the country, Volodymyr Zelensky. He announced a new commitment of $1 billion of U.S. military aid, stating that, quote, in the ongoing counteroffensive progress has accelerated in the past few weeks. This new assistance will help sustain it and help build further momentum. One of the upcoming crises that you should be paying attention to is the potential for a looming government shutdown, as the Congress is struggling to find common ground on a federal budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Republicans in the House majority, led by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, are arguing that the budget should be cut and federal spending should be lowered. As of now, the House and Senate's budget bills are about $153 billion apart in price tag. The deadline to pass a funding bill is September 30th, and members of both parties do not seem any closer to coming up with compromise. Senators Mitt Romney and Ted Cruz have both said that a government shutdown is very likely to occur. And Ohio Senator J.D. Vance told reporters this week that it is, quote, reasonable to use leverage on a potential shutdown. Here on the Political Compass, we'll be keeping a close eye on this issue and we'll keep you updated. And with that, that's it for this week's Political Compass segment. Until next time, when we run down headlines coming out of Washington, D.C., Tallahassee, and the world stage for you.